Corporations are evil. They don't care about anything but making money. They're greedy and they destroy the world. Note the tone of active intent. In science, microbiology especially, it is a constant struggle to train your mind not to anthropomorphize bacteria, disease, and evolution. A virus has no goals. The way it has evolved has allowed it to survive and propagate, to passively hijack machinery. A virus has no wish to thrive, infect, and reproduce. It just does, or it will go extinct. Evolution has no end goal. What happens, happens, and some will live and thrive, some will die off due to random mutations, and ever-changing environmental factors, selecting passively, non-intentionally, for those that happen to thrive and survive. Do you see how hard that is? The brain automatically tries to anthropomorphize anything that moves, and creates a narrative and story of intent behind it. Even at this point in my career, for humor's sake, and because the mind likes to think it, we in the lab still refer to active intent in our bacteria, even though our logical minds know that it is completely not the case. Occupy Wall Street, Bernie Sanders supporters, and left-leaners alike view corporations as this Illuminati, actively evil company that wants to gobble everything up, and the rich are laughing at us like an evil obese monster. But what is a corporation? A corporation is a government-enforced legal status of a collection of people contractually agreeing that if their pool of the money they spend on an endeavor ends up going bankrupt, the people they owe can't go after the individual's assets. They can act and be treated legally as a limited individual under the law. That is all. There is nothing essentially evil about a corporation. A corporation can be big or small. It can be limited to an individual or a small collection of people, such as an LLC. It can be for-profit, non-profit, co-op, privately owned, and publicly traded. The problem with corporations all comes down to what rules, laws, corporate cultures, and structures exist. What most people think when they talk about corporations are the large, especially multinational, publicly traded companies. Their entire purpose is to make money for their stockholders. If they don't make money for their shareholders, no one will invest in them, making them collapse and die. They have to compete in the market enough to keep themselves going. Hence why corporations act only as ethical as they absolutely have to, or is a form of sustainable advertising that creates brand loyalty. Evil is rarely one person or one group. Evil is banal and boring and baked into the system. If you make the chain of responsibility long enough, like what happens in multinational corporations, everyone at the company can slightly venture into ethical gray areas and be completely legal and look at themselves in the mirror just fine every day without guilt, while all the gray area adds up to create very real long-term evil that hurts many, many people. Add the propensity for people with sociopathic tendencies to aim for higher positions and be viewed as more competent than they are because they know how to manipulate the people around them, and the gray areas get closer and closer to black without proper systems in place to correct for that. When all public corporations act less and less ethically in their overall system, it makes it less and less possible for actually ethical companies to compete in the market, unless they market the hell out of how ethical they are compared to their competitors, mostly because all companies pay their employees too little, thanks to also salary competition, to actually be able to buy the more ethically sourced products. Add to that short-term, or what are referred to as quarterly management, or quarterly capitalism, where all the CEO's bonuses are dependent on short-term results, and nothing on long-term results. Short-term traders who buy and sell in a day, and a parasite oddly called activist investors that get on the board and demand to change the corporate structure so the company buys back shares, increasing the short-term values of other stocks with no real strategy for long-term sustainability, or pushes to make benefits for CEOs based on short-term earnings, and you now have an unsustainable job market, unsustainable businesses, and everyone is in a race to the bottom because no one can compete. Publicly traded corporations are neither good nor evil. They only reflect and follow the rules set by the government that allows them to exist in the first place by preventing personal loss and seizure of property of individual shareholders if the company goes bankrupt. Without a government, corporations would not exist. No one would take the risk. It's why anarcho-capitalism, in and of itself, is pretty disconnected from reality. The government and courts provides much-needed stability to allow a corporation to even exist in the first place. Therefore, the government is what must decide and control the rules corporations must follow. Corporations are like dogs. If you have strict rules for them and let them know who's boss, they can do great, amazing things for the people of your nation. If you let them go undisciplined, like in the US, they will have no respect for you and run all over you, attacking you and other people at every turn, hurting everyone in their path. Corporations aren't people. They are necessary individuals and more like domestic animals with certain rights similar to a person and way more rights than some people here in the US. Americans treat corporations much like they would view their pets, this divine magical creature that loves them and will bring them happiness in their life, without understanding the dangerous dark side that can occur when they aren't properly trained. One of the noted problems with corporations is there is no death penalty when they harm people. The entity gets fined, which is like a slap on the wrist or a squirt bottle against a raging bull. With animals that attack humans, we usually put them down. Disbanding a company is very wasteful, so there are some other options. Upon punishing and firing the people responsible, turning the voting share of the company over to the employees, making it a co-op, is a great way to threaten corporations to behave or lose their market stakes and controlling interest. Certain sectors like utilities and banks could be nationalized. Preventative measures such as creating a B Corp like Maryland has that gives tax breaks for taking good care of their employees are one of the many ways the government can use its rightful power to train publicly traded corporations it created to behave and serve the people, not just the shareholders. So don't think of corporations as evil, or a person with actual intentions. Think of them much like an animal that can be useful or dangerous depending on where it is in the hierarchy. Much like a car, corporations make great servants but terrible masters, and until we will understand this, we will suffer for many more decades.
Hey guys, I'd like to give a shout out to Elias Garcia and EnderX for their Patreon subscriptions. EnderX just re-upped, and thank you so much. Still working a lot of overtime. I normally work in bacteriology, but cell biology right now needs help, and therefore I get some extra overtime. If you can donate on my Patreon, I can begin to do videos again more than twice a month. Otherwise, just like, rate, subscribe, and binge watch my old videos. I have over 400 on there. And if you don't know where to start, just click on one of the playlists on my page. Anyway, thank you, and have a good evening.